Lot better, yeah, everything went well. Yeah, I was kind of last one coming, but I had to avoid the, I knew it was an accident, I could tell. All the brake
Yeah, we're
right.
two semis.
Oh, is that what it was?
You know what? Snow, there's no rain.
Oh,
For some reason, people can't drive.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Where it's such snow, you would think it'd be worse.
People are a lot more cautious and stuff.
Maybe that's it. And the people don't get their tires. They've been there for
Yeah. They're tired.
I led foot that I was like, oh, I'm gonna get stuck.
It's not worth it.
No.
He was here.
He's with Patrick, Tony.
Good morning, everybody. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good morning. We will note that all board members are present. And good morning to everybody, and thank you for being here today. We'll move forward with our agenda under our administrative portion. I move the approval of the minutes of the April 5th, 2023 board meeting.
Second?
And seconded by Ms. Chappelle. Any unreadiness? Okay, all in favor, aye. The ayes have it, and it is so ordered. I move the acknowledgement of municipal ward boundaries and corresponding precinct boundaries for North Olmsted.
Second.
It's been seconded by Ms. Chappelle. Director Pilati, I think you have some information to share with us.
Sure. So as we have done a few times this year already, it's North Olmsted's turn for boundary adjustments. Again, based off of census information. The city council went and they rebalanced and changed their ward boundary lines. In a conversation with some members of council, North Olmsted took an aggressive approach in their ward boundary lines and really wanted to change them up. And then what they had asked of kind of the county board of elections was to really draw the lines. So since they were aggressive, draw the lines as if how we would want to see them and make them as geographically regular as possible, meaning squares and rectangles versus octopuses and other shapes. Because they said what they wanted to do is they had already heard a lot of concerns from the residents of North Olmsted with their ward boundary adjustments. And they said, let's go ahead and just do it all right now, get it done, get it set, make it better. And then, come next year, when it'll be their new normal. So we did do that. And we came up with what we had. We presented this as a courtesy back to the city, to the clerk, and the council members did in a committee meeting, viewed it, and they were very pleased and happy with the work that was done. So,
Well, if I may,
Yeah.
just I hope that the North Olmsted leadership will make the voters aware that it's, I mean, this is a huge aggressive, it's very kind, where 84% of the voters are impacted. I don't think we've seen that kind of impact to the voting, to the voters, and when we go through this process, or where the municipalities go through the process rather, and then we end up having to make the changes. So I'm hoping that their leadership is clear with the voters that they were aggressive. I mean, we're working in partnership, I get it, but we did not initiate these aggressive changes. So I just am concerned because it's a huge, huge change to a big segment of the voters. And so I think they need to be equally as aggressive in alerting the voters, making them say, giving the same message, yeah, but it's going to be upheaval now. It's not going to be anything that you're used to, but going forward, this is the best result. This is why 84% of voters impacted. It's a lot of people, and a lot of people are hopefully not going to be too unhappy,
Yeah.
but I think they need to make sure that they make clear they are the drivers of the change, and we are, cooperating and facilitating getting it done. And I hate to beat a
No,
dead horse, but this is a huge, huge impact to voters.
and I don't disagree with that. And part of our conversations with them in that will saying, okay, we will go ahead and try to do this, but we are going to need a concerted effort between us to get this done, more so than usual. They are set for November's their first election. They have this year, I think for their charter is the at-large council members. And so we'll have now from there, now till then, working with them, trying to come up with, we need to be out there a lot. We need to be with their council ward newsletters and all these other things. And maybe make a few more trips out there than we do to some other cities because of the impact.
Has
So
that conversation been had?
Yes.
Been had, okay,
not what the final plan is, no, but going in and saying, we're only comfortable doing these types of changes if we seriously attack this, because it is impacting.
well, it's not
Almost the
only
whole
us
city.
seriously attacking it, I mean,
No,
they are
no.
the initiators of
Yeah.
the change, but, okay, I just feel like we have to go on record, because we are gonna get the complaints. I don't know if they'll get the complaints, but we're gonna get the complaints from the voters when they show up at the locations and they're not in the right precinct and they don't understand. We've gotta be equally as aggressive on the back end here, I'm sorry for,
No,
I just feel like, it's a lot of voters, so. Okay,
I definitely agree.
get off my platform here.
And then if,
Close it.
no, agreed, and if there's any technical questions, John Eddie is present here today, but
We have no doubt, I have no doubt that John Eddie has done a fabulous job, as he always does, configuring this stuff. But this is huge. So, I think more aggressive than we've ever seen in terms of the number of voters impacted, so.
agreed.
Director, off the top of your head, do you know how many polling locations we have in North Homestead currently?
Off the top of my head, I don't remember,
Okay.
but what I did do is election support did give me a draft of the poll place assignments with what this was, and I did provide that to the clerk of council, not for distribution publicly, but to share with the council members, and then they have done that. And I want to say 5 or 6
But this
polling
is a
locations.
super
were up.
polling location municipality.
No, it's not. No,
Okay,
no, no.
That's what I was just,
They-
kind of go along with what you were saying.
They probably have 5 or 6
Okay.
poll places, and there will be precinct reassignments from location A to B and so on.
Sure, thank you, sir. Any other questions from our board members on the motion that's on the floor? Okay, we're ready for the question. All in favor, aye? Aye, the ayes have it, and it's so ordered. Thank you. I move to acknowledge the following resignations from elected office. Joe Glados, Brooklyn Heights Village Council, Member of Council. Gregory M. Single, City of Brook Park, Director of Finance and Taxation. Cynthia Beard, Highland Hills Village Council, Member of Council. Ethan Spencer, Moreland Hills Village Council, Member of Council. Justin Gould, University Heights City Council, Member of Council. And the appointments to elected office, to acknowledge these: Shane L. Tomer, Brooklyn Heights Village Council, Member of Council, and Ethan Spencer, Village of Moreland Hills, Mayor.
Second.
And seconded by Ms. Chappelle. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. It is so ordered.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
So I just wanted to follow up after that vote. So it would be at the previous meeting when this board took that policy of trying to create a form and send it to work and make sure that our appointments are actually correct and accurate. Brent Lawler and Corey Millen have shared, they've actually taken that form, they've digitized it so it can be filled in by clerks, and they sent it to law directors clerks. One in our packet, you will see one of those forms was returned to us. And the feedback given to me through Brent and Corey is that law directors and clerks are very thankful. They like it. They're good at filling out forms, and they like that there's a uniform process, and it takes away some of the ambiguity of what do we do, how do we do it. So we did get one of those back, and on the other one, they didn't submit the form, but they submitted like the attached type of documentation that we want that gives us that veracity. So that was, of course, good call on the board members for us to do that, and it's been received well.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. On to our human resources agenda. I I move the approval with joy and sadness, the retirement of Dane Thomas from Assistant Manager, Election Support Department, effective July 29th, 2023. And the promotion of Mary E. Robinson from Supervisor Election Officials Department to Assistant Manager Registration Department, effective May 1st, 2023, and the appointment of Austin Falco to Database Analyst ISC Department, effective May 22nd, 2023.
Second.
And seconded by Ms. Chappelle. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. It is so ordered. Thank you. On to new business, Director Palat.
So the May 2nd election, next Tuesday, the Board of Elections here, we are prepared and ready for that election. We have recruited and trained 100% of the poll worker election day staff that we need. And over this week and concluding actually tomorrow, we will, staff in that department will have conducted 16 Zoom conference calls that supplement the training that they had. And in these calls, they focused on changes for this election, such as photo ID, the provisional process, and what I just passed to you. This was born out of last board meeting. This is a card that will be at the voter assistance table that when poll workers see that or they know that ID was not presented with that provisional, in addition to the required form that the Secretary of State requires us to give them, we have trained and reminded during our Zoom calls to hand this card to those particular voters because they need to come down here and provide us with ID. So something that hopefully will go in their pocket versus the garbage can, and they get down here within those 4 days. So that was a lot of the focus on these Zooms and have been well attended. Polling location and equipment deliveries of the 65 locations, 61 locations have been delivered. We have another 3 being delivered today, 1 on Monday in Parma Heights. That's on target in good order. Early in-person voting has been slow. We've had 243 voters up through yesterday. We are open today, 7:30 to 7:30. We will have weekend voting, 8 to 4 Saturday, 1 to 5 Sunday. But Sunday is the close at 5 p.m. There will not be Monday voting. We have been trying to get that out with social media, press release, Facebook Lives, and whatever we can to try to make people aware of that. So they'll be here and be staffed and be ready to receive any voters this upcoming weekend. Vote by mail. We have about 7,800 ballots out we've sent out about 7,800 ballots, about 5,900 have come back, which is 75% approximately. So I would anticipate between now and election day to get another 750 to 1,000 vote by mail ballots, which will get us 85% plus, which would be realistic and customary for an election. We did have the close of, bless you, the deadline for the vote by mail deadlines. This was the first time it was 8:30 on Tuesday. There was not a rush at the deadline to get applications in, but we did have our file to Midwest, the ballot printing vendor, by 10:30 the next day, and everything, a little over 100, about 105 ballots did go in the mail or went to the post office that same day. Just as a fun fact, since the close, we have received 580 late vote by mail applications. That meaning that they, under the old deadline, would have been timely, but are not at this point with the new rules. For
Are
election,
those voters notified?
I think we sent a letter, don't we? Yes,
Okay.
we sent a letter out to them. We still have the opportunity to come down this weekend and go to the polls on election day. For election day, the command center that we typically run, we've gone through, done our walkthrough, working with the county emergency management to make sure we have that set up in our internal call center. We have our workers identified and training. Good, so we're good for those issue trackers on election day. We have on our website, we basically the layout is there's 4 boxes kind of on the front of the web page. We have dedicated 1 box in the last days, and we'll keep that through election day, which is where do I vote? I think 2 things that we see with this election is, 1, am I actually participating? Because it's not countywide. And so in that box, it's real simple. It shows who's in the election with a map that's highlighted in that area, and then a breakdown with the municipalities and the type of election, whether it's issues only or a primary and an issue or a primary only. So we have that right there, easy for them to click on. We have a tool for individuals to know where to go to vote on election day with their house number, their street name, and their city. It will return what the polling location is, the name of the location, the address of the location. It will tell you your city ward precinct, and it gives you a district inventory, just general district inventory. It's not necessarily what's on the ballot, but it makes it simple. And that's not for just registered voters. That is basically, bless you, an address driven tool. So if somebody were not to be registered or they were looking for someone else, again, house number, street, city can get it. So we have that real simple for someone to click on, as well as a map of what are municipalities that have poll place changes. There was a press release that was picked up on cleveland.com, so we're thankful that they did that. At those polling locations where there's a change, we do put out signage directing people where to go, and where it doesn't create more confusion. Election Support, working with John Eddy, creates a unique map that we put on a A-frame sign outside that visually you can say, oh, I'm supposed to be here. We don't do that at all locations. When we use our judgment, it's more so where a polling location is still a polling location, but some people have moved out. So we kind of highlight there who stays here and then who is out and then where they're supposed to go. So
Won't the e-poll books, have the e-poll books been adjusted to, for all these changes to, so that will still be in operation and they will be able to see once they, their ID, whatever swipe. Okay.
exactly.
Okay, so
So
that's nothing, that's all been updated to reflect the new changes for voters.
correct. Yes. So if they go inside, they'll get the service and be able to redirect it, and they're welcome to come inside. But if they see that are whatever outside there and they want to do that, they can.
Okay.
But if they want to continue to go in, they're welcome to do that. So I think we're, best we can, or we've tried to cover it and use things that we've used in the past that have been successful. Another thing that we're going to do a little bit, or something that we're doing a little bit different for this election, is with there being no early in-person voting on Monday, and with this not being a countywide election, typically what happens is on Monday, once early in-person voting closes, we push a final file out to electronic poll books to capture what happens on Sunday and Monday regarding early in-person voting. We actually are going to delay us sending those out. It'll be timely for the poll workers when they arrive Monday night, but we will, at the close on Sunday at 5, staff and IT will create the file, will update the books, the electronic poll books, so it won't need that update. And then they will get those all packed in their cases. Typically, Election Support will come on Sunday morning to grab those books. They will now come Monday morning, get those books and get them out to the poll places before the organizational meeting happens on Monday at 6 o'clock. So that's one less thing that poll workers have to look at, and they can focus a little bit more on getting up the signage that talks about photo ID and getting the voting, focusing on provisional, that process. So we'll see how that goes. Don't know if that'll be possible in countywide, but this is a good time for us where we're confident we can execute it and see what we can learn and what we can do. So those were most of the updates. I think I was hopeful for a 20% turnout this election, but based on what we've seen kind of with the vote by mail and early in person, think it might be maybe around 15% turnout that we get for the election. Hopefully, I am proved wrong to the point of greater turnout than less turnout. And in looking at that, what that would mean is we should expect around 25,000 or so individuals to go to the polls on Tuesday. Any separate questions?
Just one I have.
Mhm.
So are we using these strategically? How I just, can envision people just handing these out, maybe, but how are we to make sure the poll workers know who to give them to? How are these going to be used in the polling? Location?
Sure. So this card is focused, this card will be placed physically at the voter assistance table. So the poll workers working the electronic poll books on the front end won't have these. And so when these voters do get redirected to the voter assistance table, the voting location manager, voting location deputies, and then, so they are more versed on it, but we've also exposed all poll workers to it. So the voting location manager and deputy will, those individuals who are actually assigned to the voter assistance table will give them an overview again on Monday. And so when the voter fills out the provisional envelope, which they should do in front of the poll worker, well, they have to actually show them the ID. If they are not able to show them that ID, they will go ahead and continue to let them cast their ballot. And only for those, not all provisional voters, just those who did show our workers' ID will get this card and say, hey.
So they realize that.
Yes.
Okay, I just envision, we print these out and they're given to the wrong
Yeah.
folks, or they're thrown in the trash, or
no.
somehow they aren't able to serve the purpose that's intended, but it sounds like you thought all through that.
Did I get that right, Marlene?
You did.
Yeah. So, yeah, because if you give it to everybody, that creates confusion and is
Yeah.
unnecessary.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. So the electronic books
Mhm.
typically went out with the rest of the stuff.
so
Is that what, so that's probably why you're saying it might not be doable. If you gotta take these all out Monday morning, you had all the precincts, so
Yeah.
it might be physically impossible.
right, so what typically what our process is we hold on to those books as long as we can and be able to update them. Meaning that what we would do is we would capture, the books would physically be here, and they have to be in their charging cart, so they're not in their outbound case. And after voting would close on Saturday, early in-person voting, we would run this file that we have to get the books updated with everything that happened through Saturday, which also then would capture those vote by mail applications that came in former deadline by noon. So then on staff would work to get those ready, and then Sunday morning election support, and they would get that, then they would update the books, they would take the books out of the charging cart, they put them in their case, have them organized by kind of delivery zone, and then Sunday morning election support would come, grab those books, and then they would take it back to the warehouse and get those staged for deployment to the poll places. It's not capturing what's going on Sunday or Monday. And so then a file is created that when the poll workers would turn on their books on Monday at the polls, it comes through and it updates the book. And we know how many records should be updated, and the poll workers are trained to look for that. And so we figure 1,000 books, that's why countywide to take them out of the cases, pack them up, get them out, get them delivered. And you're also looking at 287 polling locations for delivery is a different operation than 65 poll places and it being able to pack, say, 200 cases versus 1,000 cases. Right. So that's what it is. It's just that. And I don't know, and we can always scale things, but that's something I don't know, and we'll learn.
Right.
Is it just too big to be able, because you gotta have it there for 6 o'clock, or you should have it there for 6 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
Poll workers on Monday when they show up to prepare for the next day.
Thank you. Any other questions for Director Bellotti? All right, thank you. Clear ballot update, Deputy Director Gallagher.
Yes, so this is an update as far as with our clear ballot testing processes. As you know, we began receiving the clear ballot voting equipment in February. And as the equipment was received, ballot department conducted what we'll call phase 1 testing, okay? And in that phase 1 testing, they verified that the precinct ballot scanners and the ADA ballot marking devices were delivered in good physical condition. The machines had no exterior damage. the hinges work, and that they booted up correctly. And there was 1,100 ballot scanners and about 350 ADA ballot marking devices. Last week, they started what we'll call phase 2 of testing. And in that testing, it's similar to our logic and accuracy testing that we perform for every election. And we verify that the internal functionality of each unit operates correctly. So for each unit, we loaded in a test election, and we chose the most robust election, which would be the gubernatorial primary, in that it has multiple primaries and different selection scenarios. We also loaded pre-printed ballot packs that we run through the machines, and we just to verify that they accurately read all the expected results 100% correctly. So we know what the results should be, we run them through, and then we'll end up verifying that all of the votes and all the oval positions read correctly. Ballot staff hope to have all this for the precinct scanners completed today. They will do similar testing on their high-speed warehouse scanners, as well as the ADA ballot marking devices after the election. Okay, so I want to just point out that Brian Cleary and his ballot department staff are conducting all this testing while not compromising their preparations for the May election. Floor plans or floor space is at an extreme premium, but they're getting the job done. They're playing Tetris and moving things around accordingly. Robin Roy and his IT department and Brent Lawler and Candidate Petition Services Department have completed phase 1 of the testing for the on the early in-person ballot on demand printers, and are making preparations for their phase 2 of testing. And in their phase 2 testing, they'll also replicate and rigorously test all the aspects of the early in-person voting process. And their phase 2 testing will begin after the May election as well. These departments, like all our departments in this agency, go above and beyond, and in this case they are. Phase 3 of the testing will be the load test, okay? And in it, we'll replicate the tabulation that occurs on election night. The voting results to verify, so we want to just verify that they can handle and accurately tabulate all that information coming in at a very brief period of time that it occurs on election night. So all those sticks and everything that have happened that we've accumulated over the testing will be loaded all at once in that short period of time, just to verify that it can handle that load. All testing is on pace to be completed before our June 1st deadline. We will, after all the testing is done, we'll notify the Secretary of State's office that we received and properly tested all of the voting equipment. And after they receive that confirmation, then they'll write the check for $9.5 million to Clear Ballot. But Clear Ballot, as expected, has been good partners with us. They provided a high level of service and support that Cuyahoga County expects. And so far, so good.
No problems with any of
No,
the tests?
and there's always a little bit of bumps, but they've been working with us. And the number of machines that had fallen out during the process, that had damage, was not excessively
material.
high, and they would replace them as
No material problems with the testing. So no problem.
No.
Great.
And I guess just to add one thing too, Bob Hoyt, the CEO, still trying to learn how to say Cuyahoga. He actually made a visit this week, and he went over to the warehouse, and he wanted to give a pep talk to his staff, make sure that they understand the importance of Cuyahoga County. And then he was here for a little bit, and then he went off to Summit, because they actually are implementing Clear Ballot for the first time in an election this May.
Great to know that he was here.
Yeah.
It's a good thing they got mayor's race.
Wish them the best of luck.
Yes, we do.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. Any questions for the deputy director? All right, thank you. Back to the director.
Just want to just give a quick update on some bids that are out and about here regarding the Board of Elections, and these are things that we would anticipate hopefully in one of the 2 May board meetings. We will be coming back to you with contracts for approval. And I'll just quickly hit on what they are. We have a bid out for the transportation and storage of voting equipment. That's a contract that currently Berman's holds, and that is taking election supplies, scanners, and that from getting those out to the polls for use on election day and then back afterwards. The bid was released on April 18th. We did have a pre-bid conference on April 20th and had a vendor other than Berman's that had come in and ask questions, and it was good dialogue. So what I'm hoping for is a competitive process, which typically benefits us with good pricing. That bid will close May 3rd. And again, hopefully we'll have a contract to you in May. Van rental, and that's a contract that currently Enterprise holds. Those are the vans on election night that we sent out to get the supplies and receive the supplies from poll workers. That also went on April 18th at a pre-bid conference on the 21st. I don't think anyone attended that, but we've had a phone call or two from people other than Enterprise getting a little bit more, asking questions. So we might also see a competitive process there. That bid also closes May 3rd. And so we'll see what happens there. And then our request for ballot printing, of which Midwest currently does that. That went out on April 20th. We had a pre-bid conference on the 24th, and we had some folks came on site, some attended via Zoom, but there were 8 people representing 5 companies that were asking questions. That bid closes May 5th. There was a change in the law that allows for out-of-state ballot printers to print ballots, where before that wasn't the case. And so I think 2 of these companies, at least 2 of them are out-of-state, West Coast printing companies. But Midwest did come here with 4 of their representatives, the owner, Rich Gebby. He takes it very serious, and there was another company represented here. So we'll see what happens with that. All 3 of these, we are looking for a 2-year term. So that's what we hope to do. Another thing with the ballot printing one, that same law also adjusted the bond, where it had to be double the amount. Now, I can't remember if it's equal to the largest election. I think that's what it is. Yeah. So where before we kind of had, we had a term and then a renewal at our choosing and another one, now we can go for a full 2 years because that bond is equal to the largest election conducted during the life of that cycle. So I think that also made it more economical for other people to participate. Another
One question on the bid, maybe this is America, what's the standard for us? Is it best, lowest and best,
Yeah.
lowest, what's the standard for us in terms of the?
Typically, it's lowest and best, but for the ballot printing, they did change the standard. And it's, I can't remember exactly the phrase, but it was more of a RFP type standard where it's most advantageous.
most response.
More, yeah, it's not necessarily lowest price.
Yes.
And Tony might.
I don't know what the exact.
You know, we have time to get to it, but I just was, you know, when you hear, I'm glad there are more bidders participating. Hopefully that will result in, I'm glad those changes were made to allow
Yeah.
more people to be able to participate in the process. But we need to still be able to have the flexibility to know it's not just price, it's, you know, all of the other factors that come in. So I thought I remembered something about the standard changing and
Responsibility and the capabilities of the.
lowest
vendor.
responsible, best and responsible, you know, there's all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
No, so I
You
am.
just can't throw a ball at you, right?
And I don't know the exact numbers,
Yeah.
but I am happy though, that's what it is though, for the ballot printing, it's
It's different.
who's the lowest person, who can do the job the way it needs to be done, which I'm appreciative of that, because all these contracts are important. If that ballot's not right, forget it, you're done. So, you know, so we'll see what happens and
Right.
we'll see. And then this is something that we didn't release a bid, but it's for a product called Team Dynamics, and it's a It's a issue, so the issue tracker system that we currently use on election day to log everything that's happening. That is something that was created internally by former employee Helen Tian. And it has run its course, and we need something different and better. And so this Team Dynamics is part of a national co-op program that Cuyahoga County participates in, which is similar to like state term pricing, but with the co-op, you have the ability to negotiate that, I will say, it's kind of state term pricing. And so it allows you to not have to release a bid because it's already been vetted and it's eligible for this. So they do have a product that's really good. Staff is really excited about it. And so the fiscal office is working with Mark actually on contract terms for that Team Dynamics document. They've done some presentations here with staff. And this would be a product that you would be able to use it for the issue tracking that we need on election day, but also it has inventory and asset management functions, like internal ticketing processes. So Robin has created, so like when employees have an IT question, they submit a ticket, and then the IT department reviews this ticket, and that's how they respond, instead of everybody picking up the phone and calling. Well, Robin has created it. It works well. It could work better, but he's done best. So this has the functionality where it provides that, and it's good, and we can expand. So it's something that we're looking to do. This Team Dynamics, they want to get into kind of this field of what we're doing here. So I think through those negotiations, they have provided very positive pricing for Cuyahoga County that maybe not necessarily might not exist for other entities that come behind, but it is a proven product. So that's something.
This doesn't have to be bid.
No, because of the national co-op,
Oh, okay.
you're able to, again, kind of get that state term type pricing, but you can negotiate it with the co-op. So in May, I think we should probably see something come across for that. And then the last RFP I wanted to hit on is not one that we released, but we will hopefully be the beneficiaries of, and that is a new business, a new building operations center. That bid did go out. There was a pre-bid conference that was held at Halley. The County Office of Procurement with Public Works hosted that. We attended. There were a lot of people there, a lot of interest. I was able to speak to the kind of what happens at Halley operationally and how that works, as well as what happens in this building. I then took whoever wanted to, took them a tour on our Halley operations floor by floor, kind of show them so they could visualize, this is what this looks like, this is what the space is, this is the type of equipment that we utilize, so they could get that. And then invited them, if they so what they wanted to come back over to this building. Only 2 people did. And I think it's because this is more of a standard office building that has cubicles, and they do understand the voting room is basically an open space that has a lot of computer access.
Who was that? What kind of folks were at the bid opening?
They were
Were
they
real
were
estate
commercial real
brokers?
estate,
Okay.
yeah, brokers, agents. From like when you see the signs, Cushman, Wakefield, and Colliers and all that, they were there, and people who had properties. So
Quick question, and this may be a little premature. So it's great that we have somebody looking at, hopefully we can get building ops center, the building. Will there be a separate process, or was it included as part of this RFP for logistical move and consolidation? Will we be looking to hire, or will the county help provide that service, or will we be hiring a company or going out for a bid for a company to help us? I mean, it's more than a notion when you consolidate locations.
Mhm.
So would that be a separate process in terms of, getting someone to help us with logistics and competence? I know this, if we're jumping the gun, I'm assuming we're gonna get our own space.
like the positive energy.
Always. But just a thought, I don't know if the county's gonna manage that, or if we would handle that separately at that time.
Yeah, so that's not part of this process, but
Okay.
the county will do that, manage that separately with a whole nother process. Yes, because that is massive to all the office furniture, and there's, I know moving one time, packing up my house, I can't imagine what would be packing up this. So, but that will be something that they will take into consideration. Their bids, though, they were to include some build out. So it wasn't just the building, it was building, including build out to make sure that it met what we needed. So you do need to have this much office space in that. So that bid actually closes today. So hopefully we'll find out what bids come in. And then on May 8th will be the first review meeting. The county is hosting that. Myself, Tony, and Sean Kita are the three representatives from Board of Elections who will attend all those meetings and provide input, and we'll see what happens. And then we will report back, as this goes on. We've never been through this process here at the Board of Elections with this, and so how it's been explained to me is there is a negotiation that happens with the vendors that submit, so it's not like, here you go, and it's set and it's done. So that'll be something for us to learn and see how that works. So exciting, and the thing I'm most excited for is parking. Yeah. I mean, that's not sexy or anything, but boy, is that a game changer for us. So we'll keep you updated with that. So that is what I had as far as I wanted to kind of let you know what's out there. So, come next month, we'll have some contracts, and those contracts, as always, we work with Mark to make sure that we have the protections that we need.
Oh, sure. Is there obviously everything being at one location would be best case scenario.
Mhm.
Is there a plan B if that doesn't materialize, possibly that this facility might stay, but voting and the equipment storage and everything could happen in a different building with parking? I mean, is that-
Yes, so the way that Public Works structured the bid, they have three sections. This might not be absolutely correct, but I think section A is what happens at Alley. Section B is just early in-person voting. And section C is then what happens in this building outside of the first voting part. A vendor can submit a bid that captures A, B, and C, or they can submit AB, meaning Hallie early in person, or BC in person and this functionality here. So though they did have that option when they did that to see how that comes in. Because it is probably in the ballpark of 175,000 square feet for all of us to come together. So there could be something to that where early in person goes with one or other side of the house to somewhere that has space parking. And when we, as part of the specs, we have probably around maybe 8,000 square feet of early in-person voting space. That's the booths and the queuing and all that. We've set that at 20,000. So we more than doubled what that space is. Not necessarily that we would have more check-in stations, because that's pretty decent number, and especially IT-wise, but more people standing inside, out of the elements, being able to expand voting booths if need be, and have just a better flow. So we'll see. And that you need ample parking to come with the early person piece of it. So
And some of that was based on our conversations with Franklin County and what they have in their early person vote center as well. Yeah.
Do they have any standard for, let's say, the largest early in-person voting, the number of people? And do they have an idea then of how many parking spots that correlate to that kind of number?
yeah, so Tony's he's put together some information as far as what are the parking needs that we need, or what have we used, for example, historically in November of 2020. And then those types of things. So this is where we're not just saying it'd be great to have this number. There's a little bit of science behind it, correct? Looking to what we had. And then also part of it too, the location, depending on where it is there any ancillary parking around? Like, so do we have to provide 100% of parking for our temps because there's no option for them? Or are there Pay lots that are closed that they could utilize some of those things or whatever it is. So it'll be a interesting puzzle we'll try to put together, and it's gonna be, I would say, probably physical location by location. We'll have to come up with some kind of scorecard to figure out how that works.
Can you send us a copy of the specs? I mean, as long as it's not an 80-page document, can we get a copy? I'm assuming Mark reviewed Mark was also involved in reviewing that, or did the county just handle that?
County Law Department,
County Law
Yeah.
Department.
County Law Department.
It's Public Works.
So,
Oh, probably.
yeah, so what we'll do is we'll get,
That's okay, that's all right.
well, because
I'm just curious now what the specs look like, but.
so we can get you, so there's kind of like two parts. We can get you the part one, which I think kind of talks to what you, I think what you would want to see.
Yeah, I don't need the boilerplate
'Cause
language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because part two, when I stopped reading was, okay, you have to use faucets by either Moen or Pfizer, and you got it.
Yeah, no.
So they have all that later. I was like, oh my gosh, they get down to that, to everything
Wow.
with that. Even, the paint gotta be Sherwin-Williams or Pratt and Lambert. I was like, oh my gosh, but what you want is that was probably be the lead in.
Yeah,
You need this much space and this is what you,
yeah, just a little, yeah.
sure.
I don't want to put any bad omens out. I heard on the way down here, the West Side Market just lost their last freight elevator.
I heard that,
Oh.
yes.
Thank you
What's
for,
going on with, yes, oh gee.
for talking about it.
Yes, the
So,
elevator.
Well, hopefully they took the hit instead of us. And,
Poor vendors.
yeah, there is, so 9 o'clock Monday morning, there is a meeting that I'll be going to over at Halley with the landlord, contractor. They have identified the contractor who is Gable Elevators. And where we're at is that middle freight. They are repairing that. They are waiting for parts. I haven't gotten a timeline, so I hope to get that on Monday from the vendor, but it's very fixable. And then they've made a decision, the county and the landlord, regarding the freight elevator. There were a few options and they hold in. And so Gable, who was working on the medium elevator, will also be awarded the large elevator. And what we are going to do is it's going to replace that large elevator with the exception of the doors, the big doors. And that is because with that timeline, it looks like we should be able to use the large elevator to get through the November election of this year. And then after, like the week after the election, hopefully it's taken out of commission, but the parts are all there and they can do what they need to do in about a 2.5 month period to have it completed by the end of January, which then would provide us with that functionality in February for the March primary. We would be able to, that would be kind of like ideal. If you get the doors, and the doors can be replaced later, but that would add a few more months. So this kind of gets us to the elevator will actually go up and down. It will stop level with the floor and all of that, and you could call it.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Yeah, and that stuff, and still be able to use it for September and November, and I can just hit a little bit on August, and then, and also for March of next year. So I hopefully will have some information because I want to be able to hear it from the contractor. They will tell us best, or I'm hoping they will, what the true thing is versus the landlord in the county telling me what I want to hear. So. And then I know it's not on new business, but everyone's hearing in the thing, in the media, an August election, nothing has been
I
set
was gonna
yet.
ask about that.
Okay, yeah, so it hasn't been set. The Secretary of State has informed the legislature that May 10th is the backstop, that he would hope that they would have something set that is 90 days out in order for us to execute August. And while we will do it with that, quite honestly, 120 days is what we look for in this county. So April 10th, because you have to send out contracts for polling locations. You have to secure training sites for poll workers. So you have all the, and I'll hit on new equipment, but these are things with using your existing equipment. you want to have in place, because 60 days out is when you start to train poll workers. And so being able to have the poll training location set, that means you can take it. It's better to have that, because then when you recruit, you're sending them right to those locations. Poll places, schools aren't in session, which sometimes makes it easier for them to be a poll place. But sometimes there's nobody around, so it's hard. You need to start getting in contact with them now while they're there to see if they will do that and open up the building special for us. So you have like these things where really 120 days is a Cuyahoga thing. Plus we have to tell our vendors and give them notice and that, because we're not expecting it. But new voting equipment, that is something that's real for us, something that we hoped to have implemented in September. If we have an August election, we will have to do that in August and not in September, which means we haven't finished acceptance testing. We're working on that now. So we don't know the ins and outs of this equipment, but we have to start training people beginning of June on something we don't know how to use. So we're trying to, we lose 4 or 5 weeks on trying to figure that out to be ready for September, and also being ready for a smaller population. We're going countywide. Our training will be rushed. We're trying to figure out, how do we do this and how do we deploy it and figure out a lot of that stuff. So while we're starting to work on these things, we still are trying to figure out the May election. So I wish we would have known if it is going to happen a few weeks ago, puts us in a better position, but we don't have control over that. I will say the trustee for the Ohio Association of Election Officials and majority of bipartisan support of the election officials do not want the August election. We provided proponent testimony yesterday in Columbus on that. And it's nothing to do with what the actual issue is, but just 30 days or 90 days after that August election is the November election, which everyone is already running a countywide election. And we can prepare to do that. We will have statewide petitions come in July, so we will have early in-person voting while we are doing a large number of petitions. And it's just very messy and not good for our county. It's better to be in November. Put the question there, because we're already starting to prepare. So we won't know. We can find out any day now. I know there's a couple different things circulating there, but that's where we're at.
I think it's important to let to manage the expectations of our voters, and, if there is going to be an August election, it's going to be disruptive to what we do here, and I think people should be aware of that. It's not about what the issue is, not speaking in that. I always try to be focused on election administration. I know that's what we're focused on, and how it affects our ability to function and operate. So kudos to our elections officials at our association for coming out and making bipartisan stand, taking a bipartisan stand to oppose having an August election. It just seems like it's just way too disruptive, especially for a large county like us. We have so much going on, but it is what it is, and it will be what it will be, and we will do whatever we are required to do. But I appreciate the update, and you're identifying what some of the challenges will be.
You'd be committed to using the new equipment in the event there's an August?
Yes, so we will,
We have to?
well, we have a September election,
Yes.
and then you have a November election. So try to, I think it's,
Okay.
yeah, it's probably, well,
Is something running out with our
one thing is,
old equipment?
We
Is
don't-
there a date where we can no longer?
no, we can still use that equipment. What we don't have is space.
Oh, yeah.
So right now,
Right.
we have disassembled the DS200s that are not, I forget, about 700, 800 DS200s we've taken apart, and we have stacked so everybody remembers DS200, it looks like it sits on like a can, it sits on a canister. So we have stacked those canisters 4 high. We have rented 2 semi-trailers in which those canisters are stored in those trailers off-site. So we can house what we have. The scanner part, the computer part is of those are packed in Gaylord boxes and secured. I forget how many, is it 18 of them or? Yeah, pallets in the basement there, and the heads are tucked away in a corner. So, and we
Is this
already.
the centipede reference you made earlier that Brian's managing?
Tetris.
Yeah.
Oh, Tetris, okay.
Yeah.
Getting my games confused.
So we have that all there and we still don't have enough space. So even the clear valve equipment, and takes Brian a little bit longer, we have it stacked, which we wouldn't want to do that, but in order to still function, we have to unstack them, do the acceptance testing, and then restack it so we can make space for more. Having, August would be countywide, those 800 got to come back.
Right. Gotcha.
I don't know.
I got you. That explains.
I will.
You've already taken them apart.
Yeah, so, right, so we'd have to
Tires back
reassemble
then.
it and do all that, and then we would have to
Yeah,
be running.
Yeah.
At that point, we'd actually, the start of early in person in Uwakava for September is not quite before August election day, but pretty, right, like right after. So he would still have to, he would have to create an election and clear ballot, the real one, and then as well as running that one there. So it's like, I think you bite the bullet
gotcha.
and you do the best you can, and maybe we're just do the best you can.
Well, to doing the best you can, and contingency planning for, I mean, let's just assume, from my perspective, the worst case scenarios, we have to run in the August election. So are we planning? Let's do the worst case plan. Let's just plan for if we have to do it, or you started that. I mean, if we have to, we need extra storage. What do we have to do to maximize the best outcome for the voters if we have to have the August election? That's what I would just ask, that we
Sure. So,
start thinking about that.
and what we've done is like with the poll worker department, they have taken some documents that Clear Ballot have provided, training documents, and they're starting to lay out their materials. And then they have kind of like their blanks that they take it as far as they can with what they know. And then things like pictures that we would have to do or questions that we have to answer, they have that kind of identified so we can plug that in once we know the answers. And we've actually had part of this acceptance testing is that I had Becky and some of her permanent folks go over and help and actually do some of this, because that means they're touching the machine a bunch of times to start to get more familiar with the process. So for training wise, we're trying to create get as far as we can with what we can with that. Talk a little bit with election support, saying let's start to kind of cobble together what our contracts would be for August, so we can be ready to send them out as soon as possible. Because one of the things that we found in August of 22 is we had poll place changes that were unique to August, because there was already a graduation party at the VFW hall and all these other things that made us get out of there just for August. And then we were able to go back for November. So those are things that will probably happen again, because they book out those things in advance, but they also know we provide them with our election dates a year in advance. So that becomes like a blackout date for them.
So you're thinking about it. And
So we're doing those
that's
types of
just the
things.
issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question. If we have the August election, is Clear Ballot committed to bringing resources in to help support that, like we've done with vendors in the past when we've switched and they've sent extra resources to help us with the rollout?
Well, so that would be our first election. So they are on site to implement that. As far as additional resources, I don't know, they'll be running elections throughout the entirety of the state at the same time. So they will not shortchange us, but it's not like there are a plethora of, I'll say, bonus resources out there, because, for September, we would be the only game in this area, and we would be laser focused. They won't fail us, but they also have to account for all their customers at that point in time.
Well, would there be a cost? I mean, those are the kinds of things we need to start understanding. I know, hopefully we'll have a decision soon, so we really will know be operating in real time, but you know, would there be a cost? You know, are they gonna pass on a cost to us to ramp up additional help? And, you know, those kinds of things.
So what we've started even talking about a little bit for November is which is different than August, but if we have that August, like already, okay, let's start prepaying for service days for November. Ones that we were kind of had in the bank will be used up before we get to November. So let's do that now, try to get that. So we have all three of those back to back to back to back.
And hold on for recruitment. I mean, this just impacts so many different things, but I just trust that, I trust that you guys are starting to think about, you know, let's just ramp it up in case it'd be easier to kind of figure out those things and get them moving forward. And then being able to say, oh, no, we don't have to do it, as opposed to not doing any of it and then having it really be an effect.
Yeah, so we're not taking a wait and see approach.
Okay,
So we're starting, but there will be some things. So there's things in the pipeline, and then if May 2nd or May 10th comes and goes, then it takes on a, you know, then it really goes into high speed instead of just commencing.
Are you saying that September elections are kind of unique to Cuyahoga?
That there's only, I don't know how many counties, but yeah, there's not a lot of, because it's born out of charter. So luckily, I think I say luckily, Cleveland, although they do have a one ward because they had a council person become judge. It's not their mayoral one, so we won't have that largeness, but yes, September is not a given.
More challenging for us.
It is more challenging for us
Because
because of that.
I kind of would have assumed other counties had similar municipal type elections.
you know, we tried at one time to encourage, as I recall, encourage municipalities to not, you know, change their charters, to, you know, remove the September elections. I think we made some good headway, or some did respond to that request from us.
You are correct, and we did have good response, because it used to be, you would have an election every week in September and probably in October. And I would say Brett and Ryan and that, working with them, they did, some of these municipalities did pass legislation. And some of them went away from September, but some of them, they kind of went to, I would say maybe what this, so when's Cleveland? What's their language? So it kind of matches up there, because actually it's a cost savings for the cities to spread the costs if they're all going on the same date. And for us operationally, I am fortunate in that when I came in, it was on the tail end of that. And some of that started to change, but I couldn't imagine having an election literally every week leading into the November election.
Well, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Our clerks have not received anything for public comment, so there is no public comment. And board members, there's no need for executive session.
No, I don't think so, but I did want to know, could we just get from Mark, just an update on the East Cleveland, the public part? I mean, there's nothing necessarily that would be, you know, not a matter of public record, but what is the status of those series of cases involving recall? If that's, yeah, I don't think we have to go in executive session for that.
Sure. So all the cases that the board were involved in, there was one in the Supreme Court, one in the 8th District Court of Appeals, have been resolved, and the board is now completely disengaged from East Cleveland. Currently, there can always be an appeal, but that time should run out soon on the 8th District matter. There is a continuing dispute over 2 council members, well, 4 potential council members over 2 seats on East Cleveland City Council that is still pending, where 4 individuals are claiming entitlement to a seat on council, on 2 seats on council. That is progressing in the 8th District. Willa Hemmons, the law director of East Cleveland, has been disqualified from participating in that. She's the one that initiated that lawsuit to challenge the 2 members that are sitting on council based on the conflict of interest of her representing council and then suing her client is problematic.
Did somebody bring, was that, so there was an order issued, I understand, where the court actually indicated that she was disqualified. Court order.
Correct.
So was that by motion, or did the court sua sponte do that on its own?
The court was moved by the attorney representing the two members sitting on council to disqualify Willa from continuing to prosecute that challenge to those members' entitlement to the seats. And
That does make sense.
They
They filed the
granted-
motion to
they
disqualify.
granted that motion to disqualify Willa. So now the two members that were represented by Willa, or two contested members that were bringing this action through Willa, have an opportunity to represent themselves, retain their own counsel, or just rely on the briefs that Willa submitted, and the court will issue a decision.
So I understand there's language in the court order basically saying, you will not engage in this frivolous, this, I don't remember the exact language that you had indicated. The court identified that, this could potentially be frivolous conduct. And the question I had was, what authority do we have when we are a quasi judicial body, when we have people bringing claims in front of us, or where there's a similar, and this is not personal with Willa, but obviously she's appeared before us many, many times in different capacities, and other litigants, and they come before us and where we're acting as a quasi judicial body. What authority do we have to make that same sort of ruling? Like, hey, it appears to us there's a conflict or there's issues here. We're not going to hear it. I mean, do we have any authority like that? And if you need to research that, I'd just be curious to find out if we do or if we don't.
I can look into it further. I think it would be separate than the court's authority. The court has the inherent authority to govern the members of the bar that are appearing before it, and that might be a little bit different here. There are several attorneys on the board, and there are duties to our profession that may come into play. But the court was relying on Civil Rule 11, which doesn't really apply to proceedings before this board, and the statute on frivolous conduct that doesn't really apply, but there might be other lines of authority that we might be able to draw upon.
Yeah,
to do
to the
something.
extent we have somebody that is, advocating and then giving, just to me, it impairs the fact-finding process. And to the extent that we have authority to, determine, what we will or will not hear because we're concerned about the veracity of testimony, or I just would be curious to see what parameters we might have going forward.
Okay.
To her point too, there was the council, as it's constituted now, did issue, I believe it was a resolution making it clear she is not their law director. So when you get something like that, and I know there's a question as to the membership of the council, it's the case you referred to, that does give me pause too, because there is a reason for them to come back and all this is still pending. I mean, how do we proceed if she's coming in to represent when we give a resolution saying she's not their lawyer anymore? It's a little problematic, so.
You just want to be proactive, so
Right.
we're, at the time we get
Clean record.
something, we're not sitting here and there's somebody standing at the podium and we don't really know what the parameters are for our
Right.
authority. I just would be helpful to know what we can and cannot do. I mean, we don't want to, not have people come forward and conduct our
Right.
hearings but it would be nice to know what our limits are or not.
And also too, in the role she's in, sometimes she will say, I'm representing as law director, here's my opinion, and so we do look at the opinion of the law director. So that's why the role she's in as well could be one that if she comes back, we may want resolution on how we treat her, given the fact that there's a question as to her role too.
Okay.
And anybody else who comes in front of us and we, there's something that doesn't sit right, given what's been stated, given what's been presented, what are we permitted to do as
Yes.
a body hearing a quasi judicial matter?
Okay.
It'd be helpful to
If I
know.
could, take that back and get back to
Thank you.
So we're not involved in that case, though.
No, that is purely with the members that are contesting the seats. And we'll take direction from the court.
Is there anything any update we need to know about public records requests?
None currently. There are some pending public records requests that we're looking at. and we've gathered some additional facts. So I'm not prepared to brief you
That's
in a
fine.
reliable way at this point. But when time's ready, we can
Yeah, there was an email.
correct. Yes.
Counselor Sure, I'm
I
sorry.
have one more question, if you don't mind, for me to East Cleveland. I know there was the case involving the two parties that were removed, council members, two that were appointed. I guess my other question was, typically if there's a vacancy, even if it's an appointment, if it's something that's supposed to be on the ballot, it would be on the ballot, potentially this November in a municipal cycle. We're not in any sort of, or because it's at court, we're looking at that first. I guess I just want to make sure we're not missing any deadlines if those members need to stand for election.
Yes, I don't think that's been raised, but
So I don't, off the top of my head, I'm not sure what East Cleveland's. I think East Cleveland, I think they vote in the November general, except for the office of mayor.
Oh, so everyone's up anyway.
And so I don't think,
We're not aware of either of those circumstances, but that's not expired.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was my question, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And then, if I may, the last case that is where there's been some public activity, this is not attorney-client privilege, but the ballot selfie case, what's the status of that?
yes. The board and the Secretary of State were, we received a favorable ruling from the district court here, in the federal Northern District Court, where the court found that the plaintiff claiming that her First Amendment rights were being violated by the statute prohibiting you from displaying or exhibiting your voted ballot violated her First Amendment freedom of speech rights. The court found that she lacked standing to bring that case because there was no credible threat of prosecution. No one had communicated to her, told her she was reading the statute and felt that she was being stifled in her expression of her political beliefs. Court said you don't have standing, case dismissed. She has now appealed that to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals, where we have a briefing scheduled now with the plaintiff's brief due late May, early June, and our brief due in early July. There is a mediation scheduled for the 15th of May, where we'll talk about it. The board is really kind of a marginal player in this. It's a state statute. We follow the directives of the Secretary of State. We can't just say that law is unconstitutional. It's the law on the
No,
books.
sure.
So we're kind of letting the Secretary of State take the lead. And we'll see where it goes at mediation. I can report back to you. I think Tony are going to join, and we'll see what the Secretary of State has to say. I think it's something that the court's just going to have to decide.
Yeah, I just, when those kind of cases get out there, then, we have lots of elections coming up. So the question is, what are we telling people when they decide to do that? If they, and it sounds like the case was decided and dismissed because there was no credible evidence that boards of elections or anybody else were somehow,
Policing.
violating her right or policing saying you cannot, but that raises a question. What if we have people doing that? What are we supposed to tell our folks to do?
Right,
Good-
and
good
That's,
point.
yeah,
and-
to avoid yet another complaint or to add some problem to the existing litigation.
we actually had a complaint a couple cycles ago, I don't know if you remember this, where someone was doing selfies. It was in Highland Heights. And some of the other voters were like, are you taking pictures of me voting? Like, they were uncomfortable.
Right.
So, I mean, even though we're saying selfie, the whole point is to allow people the, ability to vote in peace and not necessarily be in the background of these as well, or have their ballots exposed. So I guess maybe there's some protocols along those lines. I mean,
Yeah, I just want to try to be proactive to make sure we don't, if we have a situation, and that our people know what to do. And to your point, it's not only about you taking, we don't want other people to feel uncomfortable or that their rights are being violated when, their right to vote in peace and in private. So just thinking, maybe you guys could think about, and we're not trying to create a problem, we're trying to get it, just to get ahead of any potential issue. What are our poll workers supposed to say to people when they see that? So,
Okay.
good idea.
Yeah, I'd like to have a little bit of a dialogue.
yeah, well, no,
And,
that's just wanted to
Another
raise that.
job for the rovers.
there you go.
And then obviously that can happen early in person, early in voting. I think some of the stuff that's happened too, though, is somebody at their home with their vote by mail. Take a picture, and put that on Facebook, and then saying, hey, it's right there. And that one's a little bit trickier, yeah.
Oh, it's so, always, it's so much. fun.
Such a boring field.
Yeah.
Just what you eat, you know?
Right.
Work 2 days. a year.
Yeah, right.
All right, so before we close, I just want to take this opportunity to thank you, Director, Deputy Director, and staff for your work in preparing for the May 2nd election.
Yeah.
Have a great election.
Yeah.
And our work here is done, so I will entertain a motion to go into recess.
I'll make the motion.
All right, I'll second it.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Ayes have it, it is so ordered. Have a great election and a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.